Have you ever noticed that sometimes your plan is not the same as God's plan for you? Well, listen to this Godwink story. Ruth was a struggling single mom. She was scanning the newspaper looking for options, and then an ad just seemed to jump right out at her. It said, "For sale, Chris Steakhouse." Now she thought about that. Would I be able to run a restaurant? I've never done that before. And then she remembered Chris Steakhouse had opened 40 years ago on the day that she was born. She saw that as a great Godwink, and so she decided to move forward because she believed in herself and she sure believed in God. She mortgaged her house and she sat down and signed the contracts. But before she signed, her lawyer pointed out an obscure kind of paragraph that said, in order to continue using the name Chris Steakhouse, the restaurant would have to remain in the same location. Well, Ruth said that's no problem. She went to work, and 10 years later, the restaurant was flourishing. There were lines of people trying to get into the restaurant. And then all of a sudden, disaster struck. There was a fire. She was devastated. The next day, she went to her banker. She didn't know what she was going to do. And the banker said, "Well, why don't you open again in that other building that you bought for wedding receptions and catering?" Good idea. So 7 days later, she was ready to open in the new location. Her lawyer called. He said, "By the way, remember that old contract? It says you can't use the name of Chris Steakhouse if you change locations." She thought about that problem for about 3 minutes. And then she said, "I tell you what, from now on, we will be called Ruth's Chris Steakhouse." Well, it was an odd name, and they even made fun of it themselves, but everybody remembered the name. So you see, this is an example of how something that is perceived as bad, in the case of Ruth, a fire, can actually be a detour that is in fact a Godwink.